This is the most dangerous storm in history. A storm that almost ended the world as we know it, and most people have no idea that it even happened. In the year 1970, in a small bay located off of India, the clouds rumbled with proof that a massive storm was about to hit. However, 800 miles north, the East Bangladesh, now part of Pakistan, go about their daily lives, completely unaware of the impending threat brewing in the distant waters. On November 8, 1970, a collection of slow, swirling clouds are detected deep into the Bengal Bay, proof that a mini-tropical storm is about to form. On November 9th, in a single day, this area undergoes a rapid change, a change into a full-fledged tropical storm. The beginning of a hurricane or cyclone is near. On November 10th, the storm strengthens, but a very distinct path is formed for the storm, a path that, to the shock of those watching the radars, was seen to be heading directly towards the coast of East Pakistan at an alarming speed. Finally, on November 11th, the storm intensified into the strongest class of a tropical storm, a severe cyclone. The cyclone moved towards land with no sign of stopping. However, most people near the bay would ignore the storm, because storms of this size are fairly common for the area. But unfortunately, completely unknown to everybody at the time, it was going to prove to be much more effective at destruction. Known notoriously as the most deadly and destructive natural disaster in history, the Ebola cyclone is a great example of what happens when a perfect storm hits the Earth. After the cyclone reached its peak, I learned just how dangerous the Ebola cyclone was. From the incredible book The Vortex by Scott Carney and Jason McLean, this story was not just a simple story of a random cyclone. Instead, it's a story of how one cyclone can grow into something that could have destroyed the world as we know it. The storm was going to hit very soon. But there was one problem. At this point, still, no one near the base seemed to care about the storm. With a storm this size, meteorologists and radar watchers would be violently sounding alarms telling people to take shelter and prepare for the storm. But that's not what happened. It's not that the Pakistanis thought the storm wasn't that bad. It's that the East Pakistanis had no idea the storm was even coming in the first place. With a storm this big, a complete and utter failure of emergency systems wouldn't just be a small problem. It would prove to be absolutely murderous. In 1970, East Pakistan was not granted with very many emergency systems. Radars, sirens, and pretty much anything to detect and warn civilians of a deadly storm was very few and far between. On top of this, the Pakistanis also didn't really have a system to handle storms when they hit either. But what's odd is that the countries that surrounded Pakistan did. India, for example, had good enough weather detection systems and detected the storm way back when it first formed. India knew this entire time that the storm was raging towards Pakistan. But because of the two wars between India and Pakistan, political tension between the two countries would mean that India might have had no interest in alerting the Pakistanis of the storm earlier. The Pakistanis were not told anything about the storm from anyone. Obviously, this would prove to be a massive problem for the East Pakistanis. Not being able to prepare for a storm like this and being hit without any protection is, to say the least, absolutely horrifying. But what if I told you that not knowing when the storm would hit would be the absolute least of their worries? Because around the time of November 12th, the dark night sky harbored the most dangerous part of this entire disaster: a full moon. When the moon is full, the gravitational pull from the moon makes all tides roughly 20% higher. The tide is rising dramatically. But with the high tides already being dangerous and the water being significantly higher up on the shore, the Ebola cyclone now has a huge destructive advantage, allowing the cyclone to literally drag the ocean and horrifyingly allow it to take over the land of East Pakistan. The Ebola cyclone was about to hit at literally the worst possible time. However, the people would finally get some disaster warnings on the 12th. After realizing the true danger of this monstrous cyclone, the meteorologist department in Pakistan had finally issued a report and dispersed a radio message warning of the cyclone. But the meteorologist department had limited information because their information came from central Pakistan. In central Pakistan, they had developed a new system to rate storms, a 1-to-4 scale with 4 being the most dangerous. But back in East Pakistan, they were still using the old-fashioned 1 to 10-point scale, 10 being the most dangerous. So when the radio had transmitted in a few jumbled words, "Great dangers ahead, scale 4," the civilians were not only confused, but they shook it off, assuming for is nowhere near as bad as 10. But little did they know, for it was catastrophic. But unfortunately, a simple radio message would not be enough to sway most residents. Most people wouldn't take the storm too seriously just from a simple radio message. Why was there such a lack of preparation for this storm? It's not like this was the first time a storm like this has happened either. In the past, multiple deadly hurricanes in the area had killed thousands. And due to these horrible disasters, the central Pakistani government contacted the American government for help in developing better preparation for storms. But for political reasons between West and East Pakistan, the central Pakistani government didn't seem to carry out many of the plans they should have for East Pakistan. East Pakistan was seriously getting the short end of the stick here from pretty much everything. Houses are completely leveled. The floods and ocean reached the roofs of most houses, spelling pure and utter catastrophe for those involved anywhere near the shore. There was no safety. Hundreds of thousands of bodies were washed out into the Bay of Bengal. 90% of all of the homes were destroyed. All of the millions of people along the shore and in the country of Bangladesh experienced the exact same thing. The flooding, the holding on to trees and hoping for survival, and the lack of preparation due to lack of information from central Pakistan. Everyone that survived was absolutely heartbroken and, understandably, beyond their wrenching guts, absolutely furious at the central Pakistani government for the lack of information. But you're probably wondering, how in the world did this lead to almost ending the world? Well, the answer to that is much darker than you think it is, and it starts way back, right before the storm even hit. West Pakistan, the head of government, Yahya Khan, made a terrifying decision during the cyclone. He chose, on purpose, not to provide aid or help for the storm to East Pakistan at all. He chose not to tell them anything or help them at all. Why? Because he believed that the East Pakistanis wouldn't vote for him in the upcoming election. So his solution was to kill as many people as he could so he didn't have to worry about bad voters. A disgusting decision that one of his generals later addressed as, quote, a cyclone that solved about 500,000 of their problems. Fortunately, this actually backfired very badly on Khan, leading everyone across East Pakistan to unite against him to vote for a man who actually did help in the disaster, Sheikh Mujibur Rahman. So how did Khan respond to this? Did he happily hand over the title of president? No, he actually decided to become a dictator. And to put very, very simply, instead, he jailed Mujib and started killing everyone in East Pakistan that didn't follow his orders. Want to know how this story ends? Don't miss the next video. The dictator gains allies, the United States gets involved in the war, and a cyclone turns into a nuclear conflict. Hit the notification bell on YouTube so you don't miss the next episode. See you then.